hired a gardener to clean up my daughter's backyard while she and her husband were on a cruise. 3 hours later, he called me, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, there's somebody scratching from inside the tool shed. It ain't an animal." I floored it across town, and what I pulled out of that shed nearly stopped my heart. Before I get into it, do me a favor and hit subscribe, and tell me down in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I read every single one of these. Now let me back up and tell you how I got here. My name is Walter Brennan. I'm 68 years old, born and raised in Akron, Ohio, though I've lived just outside Sacramento for the better part of 30 years now. I spent 41 years as a homicide detective with the Sacramento Police Department before I hung up my badge in 2022. 41 years of walking into houses where the wallpaper was peeling and the smell told you the story before anybody opened their mouth. 41 years of learning that the worst things people do, they do behind closed doors to the folks who trusted them most. You'd think after a career like that, I'd have seen it coming in my own family. But that's the thing about being a parent. Love makes you stupid in ways the job never did. I've got one daughter, Vanessa. She's 34 now. Smart kid, always was. Made on a roll, played varsity soccer, went to Sacramento State on a partial scholarship. After her mother passed in 2018, it was just me and her for a while. Cancer took Linda fast, 6 months from diagnosis to the funeral, and Vanessa and I leaned on each other through the worst of it. She used to come over every Sunday with a casserole, and we'd watch the Niners get their hearts broken together. Then she met Tyler Whitaker. Tyler's 36, calls himself a wealth management consultant, which, from what I can tell, means he sells annuities to retirees and takes home commissions. He drives a leased Audi, wears watches that cost more than my first house, and posts pictures of himself on yachts that don't belong to him. The first time he came to dinner at my place, he asked me what my pension paid out monthly. Just like that, before the breadbasket even hit the table. I should have thrown him out right then, but Vanessa was blowing, and she hadn't glowed since her mother died, so I bit my tongue and passed him the rolls. They got married in the spring of 2022, about 3 months after I retired. Big destination wedding in Cabo, the kind I had to take a second mortgage out to help pay for. Tyler's parents, he told us, had passed away years ago. No siblings. "It's just me," he said at the rehearsal dinner, dabbing his eye with a napkin. "Vanessa and Walter, you're my whole family now." That should have been clue number 1. About a year and a half ago, I did something I've been kicking myself over ever since. I had a little ranch-style house on the east side of Folsom that Linda and I bought back in '94. 3 bedrooms, half-acre lot, a big oak tree out back where Vanessa used to have a tire swing. After Linda died, the place was too much. Too many ghosts. So I moved into a townhouse closer to downtown and signed the deed over to Vanessa and Tyler as a wedding gift. Well, not exactly. My attorney, a man named Curtis Halberg, I've known since the academy days, talked me into keeping a life estate on the property. Means I technically still own it until I die, but they get to live there rent-free, and the title transfers automatically when I'm gone. Curtis called it old man insurance. I laughed at the time. I'm not laughing now. After they moved in, the visits dried up real quick. First it was every other Sunday, then once a month. Then I'd get a text on my birthday and a Christmas card with a pre-printed signature. I'd call Vanessa and she'd answer with the TV blaring in the background and Tyler's voice somewhere off in the distance. And she'd say, "Daddy, I really can't talk right now. I'll call you back." And she never would. I told myself it was the marriage. New husbands take some getting used to. I told myself she was busy with her real estate license. I told myself a lot of things. Then, on the morning of August 14th, just shy of 2 months ago, my phone rang at 9:15, and Vanessa's name lit up the screen for the first time in 7 weeks. "Hey, Daddy." Her voice was bright in that way. That's not really bright, the way people sound when they're reading off a script. "How are you?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. How are you?" "Listen, I need a favor. Tyler and I are flying out to the Bahamas tomorrow for a Caribbean cruise. 12 days, it's been planned for months. The thing is, the backyard's a complete disaster, and the inside needs a deep clean, and we just ran out of time. Could you maybe hire somebody to come out and take care of it while we're gone? Yard work, deep clean, the whole thing. We'll pay you back, obviously. Di held the phone away from my ear for a second and just looked at it. 7 weeks of silence, and now she needs me to play household manager. You couldn't have called so pro yourselves. Daddy, please don't make this a thing. Tyler's stressed about the trip and I've got showings all day. You're retired, you've got the time, please. There was an edge in her voice I didn't recognize, something almost desperate underneath the bright tone. The detective part of me, the part that never really retires, sat up in its chair. Fine, I'll handle it. Make sure they do the shed too. Tyler wants the shed cleaned out top to bottom. The shed? Yeah, the one out back. The big one. Just the shed and the yard and inside. Okay? Thank you, Daddy. I gotta run. She hung up before I could say I love you. I sat there at my kitchen table holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold, and I tried to figure out what was bothering me. Couldn't put my finger on it. So I did what I've done my whole career. When something itches and won't quit, I made a phone call. Hector Ramirez has run a landscaping outfit out of Rancho Cordova for 20 years. I helped his nephew out of a bad situation back in 2009. He'd got picked up on a possession charge that wasn't really his, and Hector's been my guy ever since. I called him up, told him I needed somebody at my daughter's place the next morning to do yard work and clean out a shed. Big job. He said he'd send his best crew, and he'd send a cleaner along too. A woman named Marisol, who freelanced houses for him on the side. The next morning, August 15th, I drove out to the Folsom house to let them in. Vanessa and Tyler were already gone, plane tickets booked for the red-eye. The house looked the same from the curb. Same oak tree. Same flower beds Linda used to weed on Saturday mornings. But when I walked inside, I almost didn't recognize the place. Tyler had ripped out Linda's wallpaper, painted everything that flat-builder grade gray they all love now. There were pictures of Tyler and Vanessa everywhere. Vegas trips, Napa weekends. A safari in Kenya I didn't even know they took. Not one picture of Linda. Not one of me. There was a lockbox screwed into the wall by the back door, the kind realtors use, and a handwritten sign taped above it. Shed key inside. Lock it back when finished. Tyler's handwriting. I'd recognize that pretentious cursive anywhere. I showed Hector's crew around, pointed them at the overgrown yard, walked Marisol through the kitchen and bedrooms. Then I drove back to my townhouse, fixed myself a tuna sandwich, and sat down at my workbench to clean my old service revolver, which I do once a month, whether it needs it or not. Habit. Some habits keep you sane. It was a little after 1 in the afternoon when Hector called me. Walter. His voice was low and tight, the voice of a man who's trying not to be overheard. You need to come back here, right now. My stomach turned to ice water. I've heard 1,000 voices like that on the job. It's never good. What is it? There's somebody in the shed. What? Marisol heard scratching when she walked past the back of the property to dump some trash. Faint, like fingernails. We thought it was a raccoon at first. Then we heard a voice. Walter, there's a person in there. The shed's padlocked from the outside. I was already moving. Boots on, keys in hand. Don't open it. Don't touch it. I'm coming. Walter, Hector, listen to me. Don't open that door until I get there. I made the drive in 19 minutes flat, ran 2 stop signs and 1 yellow light that was definitely red by the time I cleared the intersection. The whole way out my mind was running through scenarios, none of them good. A trafficked person, a kidnapped victim, a neighbor's kid who'd wandered in and gotten locked. Tyler had a gambling problem, maybe, or worse, and somebody got stuffed in there as collateral. 41 years on the job, and I'd seen versions of all of it. What I hadn't considered, what never even crossed my mind, was the truth. When I pulled up to the curb, Hector was standing by the gate with 2 of his guys and Marisol. She'd been crying. The crew was shaken. These are tough men who've worked construction in summer heat and seen their share of accidents. Whatever was in that shed had rattled them. It's a woman, Hector said as I came through the gate. Older. We can hear her now. She's saying something, but we can't make it out. The shed sat at the back of the property under a stand of redwoods, a big aluminum-sided thing about the size of a one-car garage. Tyler had built a wooden fence around it last year, supposedly because he wanted a private workshop area. The padlock on the door was new. Heavy duty. Brass. Where's the key? Inside the lockbox by the back door. Codes 1224. December 24th. Linda's birthday. I'd told Vanessa that code years ago for a different lockbox. The fact that Tyler had reused it made my skin crawl. I got the key, came back, and told everyone to step back. I unlocked the padlock with hands that weren't quite steady, swung the hasp open, and pulled the door. The smell hit me first. Sweat and urine, and something sour underneath, the smell of a body that hasn't been clean in a long time. The shed was dim inside, only one small window high up on the back wall, and it took my eyes a second to adjust. There was an old woman sitting on a folding cot against the far wall, skin and bones. White hair, matted. A thin blanket pulled up around her shoulders even though it was 85 degrees outside. There was a bucket in the corner, a case of bottled water mostly empty, a stack of granola bar wrappers on a small table, a space heater unplugged in the corner. No fan, no air conditioning. Just an oven of an aluminum shed in the middle of an August afternoon. She squinted at me, raised one trembling hand to shield her eyes from the light coming through the open door. Tyler. Her voice was paper-thin. Tyler, is that you, honey? I crouched down slow, the way you approach a wounded animal. Old habits. No, ma'am. My name's Walter. I'm not Tyler. I'm here to help you. Can you tell me your name? She blinked. Her eyes were watery and pale blue, the kind of blue that fades with age. She studied my face for a long time. Walter, she said finally. I had a brother named Walter. He died in Korea. I'm sorry to hear that, Mom. Can you tell me your name, please? Eloise. Eloise Whitaker. Can I have some water? The bottles ran out yesterday. I felt the floor of that shed shift under my boots. Whitaker. I turned to Hector, kept my voice level. Call 911. Tell them we need an ambulance and we need Sacramento PD out here. Tell them suspected elder abuse and false imprisonment. Use those words exactly. He was already on the phone. I helped Eloise stand. She weighed nothing. I'm 6'1", and I felt like I could have picked her up with one arm. Her legs trembled, and she leaned on me hard. As we walked across the yard toward the house, she kept patting my arm and saying, "Such a nice young man, such a nice young man," like she'd lost track of where she was. I got her settled in the kitchen with a glass of cold water and a banana from the counter. She drank like she hadn't had water in days, which she probably hadn't. I sat across from her and tried to keep my voice steady. Eloise, do you know where you are? I'm at Tyler's house. He brought me here from the home. Said I was going to live with him and his new wife. Said I was going to have my own room with a window. How long have you been here? She frowned. I don't know, sweetie. The days run together. Tyler said it was just temporary. Just until they got the room ready. He said the shed was just for storage, but had a bed and everything. He brings me food sometimes. Sometimes he forgets. Eloise, are you Tyler's mother? She smiled, the kind of vague smile that broke something inside me. He's my only boy. My miracle baby. The doctor said I couldn't have children, but then there he was. I had to step out onto the back porch for a minute. Just a minute. 41 years on the job, I've seen worse. I've seen children dead in cribs and women beaten past recognition, and old men starved by their own grandkids. But there's something about it being your own family. The wallpaper just won't stop peeling. Tyler had told us at his own wedding rehearsal dinner that both his parents were dead. I pulled out my phone and made my second call of the day. This one to a woman named Diane Park, who used to be a senior investigator with Sacramento County Adult Protective Services, and now worked for the DA's office. We'd worked a string of cases together in 2017, an elder fraud ring out of Carmichael. She picked up on the second ring. Walter Brennan, you old bastard. I thought you were retired. "Diane, I need a favor. Right now." I gave her the short version. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, there was a pause on the line that went on for about 5 seconds. "Walter, this is going to be one for the books. Stay there. Don't let anybody move her until the paramedics arrive. I am getting in my car right now." The ambulance came first, then 2 black and whites, then Diane in her own sedan. The paramedics took Eloise's vitals on the kitchen table. Severely dehydrated. Blood pressure dangerously low. Signs of recent weight loss. They estimated she'd lost 20 to 25 pounds in the last few months. Her medications, when I asked her about them, she said she hadn't had her heart pills in a little while. Tyler had been bringing them to her, then stopped about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. The cruise was 12 days. Without her medication, she might not have made it back. While they loaded Eloise into the ambulance, I walked through the shed with Diane and one of the responding officers, a sergeant named Calloway, who I knew from the old days. We took photographs. Document everything. The cot. The bucket. The empty water bottles. The medication bottle on the small table, prescribed to Eloise Whittaker, dated 4 months ago, still half full. The granola bar wrappers, the only food in sight. In the corner, behind the unplugged space heater, I found a manila folder. Inside the folder was a power of attorney document, a quitclaim deed, and a signed contract for the sale of a property in Roseville. The signatures on all 3 documents looked shaky, the handwriting of someone who didn't quite know what she was signing. The dates ranged from January through May of this year. "Diane," I said, "look at this." She looked, her face went hard. "He's been laundering our assets through her own signature. Her house in Roseville sold in June for $490,000. We can pull the records, but I'd bet you a steak dinner the proceeds are in an account Tyler controls. And the cruise? Probably hers too. I have spent 4 decades in rooms with murderers and rapists and people who'd done things that would make a priest renounce his vows. I've never wanted to put my hands on a man the way I wanted to put my hands on Tyler Whittaker right then. But I didn't. I went home. I made dinner. I called the hospital twice that night to check on Eloise. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and did the thing I'd taught a generation of younger detectives to do. I built the case in my head, 1 brick at a time. Around 6 in the morning, my phone rang. Vanessa. Her voice was shaking. "Daddy. Daddy, what did you do? Where are you, sweetheart? We're in St. Thomas. The cruise line just told us there's a warrant. Tyler's lawyer just called him. Daddy, what is happening? What did you do?" "I went to your house, Vanessa. I went to the shed." There was a long, terrible silence. "Daddy, how long did you know?" She started crying. "Not the pretty kind? The ugly kind. The kind that comes from somewhere deep that you can't dress up." I told him we needed to move her into the guest room. I told him she was getting worse. He said it was just temporary. Just until we figured out a memory care facility. He said the shed was insulated and she had everything she needed. "How long, Vanessa?" "Since March." "Daddy, please, you don't understand." Tyler said, "I understand exactly what Tyler said, and I understand exactly what you let him do. Daddy, please, we're coming home. We're getting on the next flight. Please don't, please." "Don't what, Vanessa?" "Don't tell the police your husband was starving his mother to death in a shed. Don't tell them you signed off on it. You better get yourself a lawyer, a good one. Because I am going to make sure neither one of you sees the outside of a courtroom for a long time." I hung up. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table and looked at a photograph of Linda on the windowsill, and I asked her forgiveness for the daughter we raised. Then I drove to the hospital. Eloise was awake when I got there, sitting up in bed eating Jell-O. The nurses said her labs had stabilized overnight. They had her on fluids and they'd restarted her heart medication. She smiled when I came in. "Walter, was it?" "My nice young man." "Yes, Mom. I came to check on you." She patted the chair beside her bed. I sat down and held her hand. It was a small hand, brown-spotted, the skin like tissue paper. "Eloise, I need to ask you about Tyler." The smile faded. Something moved behind her eyes, something that had been hiding under all that fog, lucidity maybe, or grief. "He's a bad boy, isn't he?" she said quietly. "I knew it. I knew it for years. His daddy was the same way. I just kept hoping. Elors, what happened to your house in Roseville?" She looked at me and her chin trembled. "He told me he was helping me with my finances. I signed some papers. I don't read so good anymore, Walter. My eyes. It's all right. We're going to get you a lawyer. We're going to get your house back. My house." She shook her head, slow. "Honey, it's not the house. I've got a granddaughter. Tyler's daughter. From his first marriage. She's 7. He hasn't let me see her in 2 years. Her name is Madeline. He told the mother I had dementia and was a danger to her. Told me the mother had taken her to Florida. I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's all right." "Don't know if she's all right." The men to that woman's hand. That afternoon I drove to a strip mall in Citrus Heights and walked into the office of a family law attorney named Beverly Ing. I'd worked a case with her brother years ago. Kit had gotten mixed up with a bad crowd, and I'd put in a good word that probably kept him out of state prison. She remembered. She brought me coffee and a tablet and a yellow legal pad, and she listened for an hour without interrupting. "Mr. Brennan," she said when I was done, "I'm going to be straight with you. This is a high-profile case. Your son-in-law is looking at felony elder abuse, false imprisonment, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, possibly even attempted murder if we can show a pattern of withholding her medication. Your daughter, depending on what she knew and when, is looking at conspiracy charges at minimum. What about Eloise's house, the Roseville property? If we can prove she lacked capacity at the time of signing, the deed is voidable. We claw it back. The proceeds in any account Tyler controls become recoverable assets. We get her made a ward of the court, we get her placed in proper care, and we go after every dime. And the granddaughter, Madeline?" Beverly's eyes sharpened. "Now that's a different fight. If the biological mother believed false statements about Eloise's mental health, we can re-establish visitation rights for her grandmother. Eloise has rights under California law, especially if she was the primary caregiver at any point. She raised that boy alone after his father died. What are the chances she babysat that little girl for the first 5 years of her life?" Beverly smiled, just a little. "Pretty good chances, I'd say. My retainer? 12,000. My retainer? 12,000. My rate is $4.50 an hour. This is going to be expensive, Mr. Brennan. I've got pension, Social Security, and 40 years of savings. Send me the paperwork." She extended her hand across the desk. I shook it. I was 68 years old. I'd planned to spend my retirement fishing at Lake Berryessa and rebuilding the '67 Mustang in my garage. Instead, I was about to become a full-time legal advocate for a woman I'd known less than 48 hours, and probably a guardian for a great niece by marriage I'd never met, all because my own daughter had failed every test of human decency I thought I'd taught her. But you know what? When I drove back to the hospital, and Eloise smiled at me from her bed and asked if I'd brought her any of those little oranges from the cafeteria, I didn't feel tired. I felt awake. More awake than I'd felt since Linda died. The next 2 months are going to take a longer story to tell, but I'll give you the bones. Tyler and Vanessa flew back into SFO on August 17th and were arrested at the gate. Tyler was charged with 7 felonies, including elder abuse causing great bodily harm, false imprisonment, grand theft, and forgery. Vanessa was charged with 3, including conspiracy and accessory to elder abuse. Bail was set at $400,000 for him and $150,000 for her. Neither one of them could make it. Tyler's wealth management career, it turned out, had crashed 18 months ago, and he was 3 months behind on the mortgage on my old Folsom house. Most of their lifestyle, the trips, the watches, the leased Audi, was being funded by Eloise's stolen assets. Vanessa's case is set for trial in March. Her court-appointed attorney has reached out about a plea deal. I haven't decided what I'll say if they ask my opinion. I haven't been to see her. I don't know if I will. Tyler's first trial date is in May. Beverly tells me he's looking at 12 to 20 years if convicted on all counts. The Roseville house deed was voided in October. Eloise's bank accounts were unfrozen, with about $310,000 recovered out of the original $490. The rest had been spent: cars, cruises, watches, bar tabs. $40,000 a bit on a Rolex Tyler had bought himself for closing a big deal. Eloise is in a memory care facility now in Fair Oaks, real one, with a window in her room and a garden she can walk in and a nurse who knows her name. I visit her every Wednesday and every Saturday. We do crossword puzzles together. She remembers me about half the time. The other half, she calls me her brother Walter, the one who died in Korea. I answer to it. The granddaughter, Madeline, her mother's name is Christine, lives in Modesto, works as a dental hygienist. When I called her and explained who I was and what had happened, she cried for 10 minutes straight. Tyler had told her 3 years ago that Eloise had advanced dementia and had threatened Madeline with a kitchen knife, and that's why no contact was ever allowed. Christine had believed him. Why wouldn't she? He's her child's father. Christine drove up the next weekend with Madeline, and I took them both to see Eloise. Madeline is 7, has her grandma's pale blue eyes, and a gap in her front teeth, and a stuffed rabbit she calls Mr. Whiskers. When she walked into Eloise's room, Eloise looked at her for a long moment and then started crying, and then Madeline started crying, and Christine, and I had to leave the room and go stand in the hallway because some things aren't yours to watch. Christine brings Madeline up every other Saturday now. I take them out to lunch after. We're working on getting Eloise some legal visitation rights, even when she moves into more advanced care. Beverly says we'll get them. I sold the Folsom house in November. Couldn't bring myself to keep it. Tyler had stripped Linda's wallpaper, and I figured if I let myself, I'd strip the place down to studs, trying to find any trace of her left. Took the proceeds and put them in a trust for Madeline's education. Eloise's lawyer set it up. Madeline doesn't know yet. She'll find out when she's 18. Sometimes, late at night, I sit on my back porch with a cup of coffee, and I think about that morning Vanessa called me to ask me to hire a cleaning crew. I think about how easy it would have been for me to say no, or to say yes and never bother to drive over, to never meet Hector's crew at the gate, to never get the call from a man with a tight voice telling me there was somebody scratching from inside the shed. Tyler thought he was being clever, asking us to clean the shed while they were gone. Probably figured the gardener wouldn't bother to break the padlock, would just rake around it, and Eloise would die quiet sometime in the next 10 days, while they were sipping Mai Tais in St. Lucia. The autopsy would show heart failure. Old lady, off her meds, sad story. Tyler would inherit whatever was left in her name and the trail would go cold. What he didn't count on was that a retired homicide detective doesn't stop being one just because they take his badge. And he didn't count on the fact that the woman he was killing had a granddaughter who deserved better, and that her granddaughter would one day get to know the only blood relative on her father's side who ever loved her. If you're watching this and your folks are still alive, call them. Today, not tomorrow, today. And if some young man with the least Audi shows up at your daughter's table and asks about your pension before the bread basket hits the table, you do me a favor and you trust the feeling that turns in your gut. That feeling has been right my whole life. It was right this time too. I just wish I'd listened to it about 30 months sooner. I'll see you in the next one. I've been turning this whole thing over in my head for weeks now, sitting on my back porch with a cup of coffee gone cold, and I keep coming back to the same simple truth. Every door that opened in this story opened because of a choice somebody made, and every door that slammed shut on Tyler and Vanessa slammed shut because of a choice they made first. That's the way it always works. Even when we tell ourselves otherwise. Tyler thought he was the smartest man in the room. He thought a leased Audi and a fake job title made him untouchable. He thought asking us to clean the shed was a clever bit of misdirection, when really it was the rope he handed me to hang him with. The man broke 100 small rules of decency on his way to breaking the big ones, and not one of those small breaks happened by accident. He chose to lie about his mother being dead. He chose to forge those signatures. He chose to walk past that shed every morning on his way to the Audi. Cause and effect. The world keeps a tally even when nobody's looking. And Vanessa, my own daughter. I raised her better than that, or I thought I did. But I've come to understand that character isn't something you inherit. It's something you build, brick by brick, every time you choose between the easy thing and the right thing. She kept choosing the easy thing. She chose silence when Eloise needed a voice. She chose comfort when courage was called for. By the time the warrant came down, she'd built herself a house she couldn't live in. What I want to say to you, if you've stayed with me this long, is that decency isn't complicated. It's not philosophy. It's whether you go check on the old woman next door when you haven't seen her in a week. It's whether you ask the hard question of your son-in-law instead of passing the roles. Wisdom is just paying attention, and paying attention is a discipline you have to practice. I let my own attention drift for 2 years because I wanted my daughter to be happy more than I wanted her to be honest, and an old woman almost died because of it. The grit part. That's the last piece. When I drove to Beverly Ng's office that afternoon and signed a $12,000 retainer at 68 years old, I wasn't doing it because I felt strong. I was tired. I was heartbroken. I felt every one of those 41 years on the job in my knees and my back, but you don't get to wait until you feel ready. Eloise didn't have time for me to feel ready. Madeline didn't have time. You stand up tired and you keep walking. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. The world will hand you chances every single day to look the other way. Don't. Trust the feeling in your gut. Make the harder phone call. Drive across town when somebody asks you to. The shed door won't open itself.